The silver-green skin of Queen Elisia's hand gleamed under the harsh light of the throne room as she drummed her long fingers against the armrest. Her crimson curls cascaded down her shoulders like liquid fire, contrasting with the metallic sheen of her royal attire. Before her stood the latest batch of captives, spoils from her fleet's most recent expedition to the outer systems. "Another disappointing collection, Commander Thorne," she said, her voice carrying the musical lilt characteristic of the Vorsai, yet edged with unmistakable disdain. "These humans appear even weaker than the last group." Commander Thorne bowed, his crest flattening in submission. "My queen, I assure you these specimens were selected for their physical capabilities. This one in particular," he gestured toward a tall human male standing defiantly despite the energy restraints binding his wrists, "showed remarkable resistance during capture." Elisia's amber eyes narrowed as she studied the human. Unlike the others who kept their gazes downcast, this one stared directly at her, a breach of protocol that would normally result in immediate punishment. He had dark skin marked with scars that spoke of previous battles, and eyes that burned with an intensity that caught her attention. "You human, your designation," she demanded. "My name is Darius," he replied in flawless Vorsai, surprising even the commander. "Not human, not specimen, and certainly not whatever number you plan to assign me." A collective gasp echoed through the throne room. Guards stepped forward, shock batons ready, but Elisia raised a hand to stop them. "How amusing," she said, rising from her throne. 7 feet tall, she towered over Darius as she descended the steps. "You speak our language and presume to correct your new empress, either very brave or very foolish." "Perhaps both," Darius answered, "though where I come from we call it dignity." Elisia circled him like a predator, the scent of exotic spices following in her wake. "Dignity," she repeated as if tasting the word. "A concept I've heard humans cling to even as they're stripped of everything else." She stopped in front of him. "Tell me, Darius, with dignity, what skills do you possess that might make you worth keeping alive?" "I was a diplomat and cultural liaison before your ships attacked our settlement," he said. "I speak 12 Earth languages and 4 alien ones. I've studied comparative xenobiology, including Vorsai physiology." The Queen's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "A scholar, how fortunate. My previous translator died recently. Unfortunate accident involving his failure to properly interpret a trade agreement." Darius held her gaze. "If by accident you mean public execution for a mistranslation you knew was correct, then yes, I heard about that even in our remote colony." Instead of anger, Elisia laughed, a sound like chiming crystal that startled the court attendants. "Commander, I've decided. This one comes to the royal quarters, the others can go to the labor division." "My queen," Thorne protested, "this human shows dangerous insubordination. Perhaps the mines would better." "Are you questioning my judgment, Commander?" Her voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Thorne immediately prostrated himself. "Never, exalted one." As guards moved to escort the other prisoners away, Elisia approached Darius again. "You will serve as my personal assistant. Translation, cultural insights, whatever I require. Serve well and you'll live in relative comfort. Disappoint me." She let the threat hang unfinished. "And if I refuse?" Darius asked. Elisia's smile widened. "Your colony's location is in our databases. Your family, friends, their fate depends on your cooperation." For the first time, Darius's confidence faltered. "You wouldn't." "I am queen of the Vorsai. There is nothing I wouldn't do to maintain order in my empire." She traced a finger along his jawline. "Besides, I find your defiance refreshing. Breaking that spirit will be far more entertaining than simply executing you." "Many have tried," Darius said quietly. "None have succeeded." "Then prepare yourself, human Darius," Elisia purred, her amber eyes glinting with anticipation. "You face the greatest challenge of your life, pleasing the unpleasable queen." As guards removed his restraints and led him away, Darius caught one last glimpse of Queen Elisia returning to her throne, her crimson curls shimmering like blood under the palace lights. In that moment, he knew he had entered a dangerous game, one where the stakes were not just his life, but his very humanity. Queen Elisia's personal chambers were a study in opulence, with high ceilings adorned with constellations crafted from rare luminescent minerals. Darius had been serving the queen for 3 weeks, and each day brought new forms of subtle humiliation designed to break his spirit. Human, Elijah called from her bathing chamber. Prepare my evening attire for the diplomatic reception. Darius approached the massive wardrobe carved from wood extinct on 3 planets. Which one would your majesty prefer? He asked, his voice carefully neutral. Elijah emerged, her silver-green skin glistening with moisture, a thin robe barely concealing her form. Her red curls hung heavy and wet around her shoulders. You choose, she said with a predatory smile. Consider it a test of your cultural understanding. Select poorly and you'll spend tomorrow in the pain chambers. Darius studied the ornate garments, recalling his studies of Vorsai customs. The visiting delegation was from the Meridian Confederation, a proud warrior culture that respected strength above all. This one, he said finally, selecting an armor-inspired gown of iridescent metal scales. The design honors their martial tradition while the silver tones acknowledge their lunar deity. Elijah's amber eyes widened briefly. Correct, she admitted, looking almost disappointed. How did you know? I told you I was a diplomat, Darius replied simply. The queen approached him, standing uncomfortably close. Yet here you are, serving as a glorified valet. For now, he said, meeting her gaze. Something flickered in her eyes, anger certainly, but something else too. You still believe you'll escape? I believe circumstances change, Darius answered, even for queens. Elijah laughed, the sound both beautiful and threatening. Your optimism is charming if misguided, she gestured to the gown. Help me dress. As Darius assisted with the complex fastenings of the royal attire, Elijah studied him in the mirror. You've survived longer than I expected. Disappointed. Intrigued, she corrected. Tomorrow you'll accompany me to the combat arena. The court should see this unusual human who refuses to break. After the diplomatic reception, which went flawlessly thanks to Darius's cultural insights, Elijah summoned her first advisor, Korvax, to her private study. This human troubles me, she confessed. He shows intelligence beyond what our studies indicate is normal for their species. Korvax's face darkened. He could be dangerous, my queen. Perhaps it's time to end this experiment. No, Elijah said too quickly. I mean, not yet. Tomorrow's combat trials will reveal his true nature. No human can maintain dignity when faced with our champions. The next day, the royal arena was filled with Vorsai nobility, eager to see the queen's unusual human servant humiliated. Elijah sat on her viewing platform, resplendent in combat regalia. Darius of Earth, she announced, you claim to possess dignity. Let us see if it survives a challenge of strength and wit. Complete 3 trials of my choosing, and I shall grant you better quarters and privileges. Darius stood in the center of the arena, acutely aware of hundreds of alien eyes upon him. And if I refuse? Then you admit human inferiority, she replied smoothly, and return to standard slave quarters. Darius bowed with exaggerated formality. I accept your majesty's challenge. The first trial was physical, wrestling a Vorsai youth half his age but nearly twice his size. Using leverage rather than strength, Darius managed a draw which stunned the audience to silence. The second challenged his intellect with a Vorsai puzzle box that had never been solved by non-Vorsai. Darius approached it methodically, identifying patterns that others had missed, and opened it within the time limit. For the final trial, Elijah herself stood and descended to the arena. Impress me, she demanded simply. Show me something uniquely human that might be of value. Darius considered carefully before speaking. Humans possess something the Vorsai Empire has forgotten, adaptability through cooperation rather than conquest. Your empire stagnates because it only takes, it never learns. Gasps and hisses filled the arena. Elijah's face darkened with rage. You dare criticize the greatest civilization in the galaxy, she snarled. You asked for truth, not flattery, Darius replied calmly. A truly great civilization isn't afraid of criticism. To everyone's shock, including Darius's, Elijah's expression slowly transformed from anger to laughter. Well played, human, she said, loud enough for all to hear. You've shown courage few in my court possess. She turned to the stunned audience. The human has passed all trials. Let it be known that intelligence comes in many forms throughout our empire. Later, as Darius was escorted to improved quarters, he caught Elijah watching him from a balcony, her expression unreadable. For the first time, he wondered if there might be more to the alien queen than cruelty and arrogance, and whether that might be his true path to freedom. Darius's new position as the queen's cultural advisor granted him unprecedented access to the palace's inner workings. 2 months into his captivity, he had created a mental map of power dynamics within the Versailles court and recognized the dangerous currents swirling around Queen Elijah. General Vaktoth, commander of the southern fleets, barely concealed his contempt during council meetings. House Trazic representatives whispered behind ornate fans whenever the queen spoke, and First Advisor Korvax's loyalty seemed increasingly questionable. After a particularly tense council session discussing resource allocation to frontier worlds, Darius followed Korvax and Vaktoth to an unused observatory tower. Hidden behind an astronomical model, he overheard their treasonous conversation. "The queen grows weak," Vaktoth growled. "This human pet is evidence of her declining judgment." "Patience, General," Korvax counseled. "Her fascination with the human gives us perfect justification. When we present evidence that she plans to grant citizenship to captive species, the noble houses will support our intervention." "When do we strike?" Vaktoth demanded. "During the Eclipse Festival," Korvax replied. 3 days from now, her guard will be reduced during the ceremonies." Darius slipped away, his mind racing. He should feel elated at the prospect of chaos, perhaps his best chance for escape. Yet something gave him pause. The plotters spoke not just of deposing Elijah, but of purging, contaminating influences, which would certainly include him and likely all human captives. That night, as he arranged scrolls in Elijah's private library, the queen studied him with unusual intensity. "You're distracted tonight," she observed. "Share your thoughts." Darius hesitated. "I'm wondering what happens to slaves when queens fall." Elijah's head snapped up. "Explain yourself." "Hypothetically speaking," he said carefully, "if someone were to discover a plot against your majesty, scheduled for the Eclipse Festival, what would be the wisest course of action?" The queen moved with surprising speed, pinning him against the bookshelf. "What do you know?" she hissed, her amber eyes inches from his. "Everything," Darius said simply. "Korvax, Vaktoth, House Trazic, they plan to depose you on grounds of species sympathy. And you're telling me this rather than using the chaos to escape." Suspicion colored her voice. "Their plans include purging all humans in Versailles territory," he explained. "And," he paused, surprising himself with his next words, "I'm not convinced your successor would be an improvement." Elijah released him, packing the room. "You could be fabricating this to gain favor. Check the observatory tower. They don't sweep it for listening devices because it's supposedly unused. And examine Korvax's communications with the Southern Fleet." The queen studied him for a long moment before activating her wrist communicator. "Captain Zenith, discreet surveillance on First Advisor Korvax and General Vaktoth. Priority 1. 2 days later, Darius was summoned urgently to the queen's war room. Elijah stood before a holographic display showing palace security routes, surrounded by her loyal guards. "You were right," she said without preamble. "They move tomorrow at moonrise." "What will you do?" he asked. "Spring the trap," she replied with predatory satisfaction. "But I need someone they don't suspect to carry critical communications." Her eyes locked with his. "Someone like you." "You're asking for my help." Darius couldn't keep the surprise from his voice. "I'm offering you a choice," Elijah corrected. "Help me, and when we succeed, ask what you will as reward." "Freedom," Darius said immediately. Elijah's expression flickered. "If that is your wish." The Eclipse Festival arrived with its traditional splendor. As darkness fell across the capital city, Darius moved through the celebration carrying encrypted messages between Elijah's loyal commanders. The conspirators struck at moonrise, only to find their access codes deactivated and loyal troops waiting in ambush. In the throne room afterward, Korvax and Vaktoth knelt in chains before the queen. "Treason carries only one sentence," Elijah declared coldly. With a gesture, guards led the condemned away. When the room had cleared, she turned to Darius. "You've earned your reward. Ask for your freedom, and it shall be granted." Darius looked at her, truly looked, and saw not just the imperious queen, but a woman who had fought her entire life to maintain power in a culture that respected only strength. A woman who had, perhaps for the first time, trusted someone outside her species. I wish to remain, he said, surprising himself as much as her. As an official human ambassador, not a slave. Elijah's composure faltered momentarily. You would stay willingly? Why? Because things change, Darius said, echoing his earlier words. Even for queens, and I'd like to be part of that change. After a long silence, Elijah nodded. So be it, Ambassador Darius.